Okay, so I'm going to cover the previous tools that we had done. Um, so one of the things that we looked at was, when you're utilizing left alignment or justified block text, there are certain things that you need to watch out for. Um, the first thing that you want to be careful of is if you do left alignment, there are times that shapes form that are kind of a little awkward, right? Ideally, you kind of want to have like this sort of peak and valley, right? So as you're going, it's going in and out, in and out. Um, but then sometimes certain things form that look a little awkward. Sometimes there's like this weird peak thing that happens here that's a little strange, or there's like this smooth little bump out that kind of could become a little bit of an issue. Those are the things that you kind of want to watch out for. Ideally, you want them to kind of have this sort of moving in and out, in and out. All right. The other thing you want to watch out for is a single word sitting all by itself. All right. So that can't happen. You have to fix that. So in this case, with this orphan, you kind of look at what you have going on. If you're still playing around trying to figure out what the size is going to be, then you adjust the size of everything. But sometimes you're locked in. You're like, all right, you know what? This is the column width that I'm going to be using, so that's not an option. You can sometimes come through and you can do a soft return. In this case, because I'm not doing baseline alignment, I can come in and try and create a soft return that just kind of pushes another word sitting down there all by itself with it. So this way, then you have two, and you can get rid of it that way. If that doesn't work, another thing you can try and do is select the text and then adjust your tracking. So if I go +10, you can see it moves and gets rid of that issue. Sometimes you go less, right? So let's say this here, let's see if this works. You don't want to really go in the -20. The rule that you have to follow is you can work this a little bit. If it's a little bit wider, you obviously have a little bit more to work around with. But with just two columns, or if three, you have to be careful that it doesn't start to look a little awkward. Now with the -20, you can definitely see that this text is very different from this text. So you can go as much as you can before it starts to look a little awkward. There are times that it's like sometimes it's like a 5 or a 3. All right. Um, the next thing you want to watch out for, if you are doing justified alignment and we have this block text, you end up having these huge gaps opening up in your words, right? That you cannot have. The other thing is you can see how tight some lines get. So that's another thing you cannot have. So unfortunately, this is like what I want to recommend is a lesser of two evils, right? There are times that you can come in here and maybe adjust, right? That does nothing, right? So the next thing you can do is you say, all right, well, then I'm going to select all of this. I'm going to go into my paragraph. I'm going to hyphenate. Not a great thing, but a hyphenation is far better than this and this happening. So once you do that, and you can even see that really didn't even do any good. It did help this one, but sometimes it actually does not help. And that's kind of goes back to my original comment, is that when you are coming up with a layout, when you're coming up with a design, you always have to use your text. You cannot use lorem ipsum. You can't use dummy placement text holder, because sometimes it just doesn't work. And in this case, you can see nothing that we can try and do is going to make that work. So now we need to go in and we need to adjust. You can see how awful that is, right? So it's almost here is when it starts to go away. So that's why it's important to always use the text that you are going to be using when you are coming up with your design. Okay. All right. The other thing you need to watch out for. All right, let me get this to a point where right here. So you have your text running down, and then you have a single sentence sitting by itself. That you cannot have. All right, so then you got to try and figure out, can I come up in here? Oops, can I come up in here? Increase it by 10, and then everything shuffles up, and I get at least 2 sentences with it. All right. The other thing you can't do is the opposite. You can't have one sentence sitting by itself and the rest of the paragraph sitting over here. All right. So those are some of the other things that you need to watch out for when you're fine tuning all of your text. Okay, good. All right. Then I talked about optical margin alignment. All right. So when you have optical margin alignment and you have a justified type, and I want to turn off this, you can see you have punctuation in the end over here. I have a comma right here, comma right there. So now you go into your optical margin alignment. This is getting kind of funky. All right, so I have this all set. Select all my text. I hit this, and it will push. You can see how it just bumps out just slightly, right? That is what you want to happen. So it's kind of like what we had discussed in Illustrator when you have Roman hanging punctuation and it's kind of sitting on the outside. The same thing happens, right? But it also is on the left-hand side. So you can see the T kind of bumps out just a bit, and this T is bumping out a bit. That's bumping out a lot because it's a open quotation mark. But that is what you want to have. Now, certain things you need to be careful of. If you have a title, let's say we are using this here, right? And we got this sitting here, and we have our alignment. It's kind of moving things around a bit, right? But if we have certain letters, let's say an F, we have an A, the W is the worst. All right, so now you can see how that W is shooting really far out, right? The reason being is by default, it's set to 12 points, but this text is 36 points. So take a look at how far out this is coming out, and then let's change this to 36. And then it moves all this in because it shouldn't be shooting that far out. But if it's 12 points and it's sitting inside copy, like a body text, then it is going to need to kind of shoot out past that. So that way it doesn't look like it's being pushed in the column. So this is something that you need to play around with. It just fine tunes a lot of your lines, but you need to make certain that you're changing this value. All right. So it's the whole thing changes on you. Okay. Done. I talked about this right here that I just messed up on us. All right. So when you have different size text, right? So right now, all of this, let's bring up this. All of this is in one text box. We have 36 points, we got 21 points, and then we got 11 points. All of them are using the auto letting, which is 120% of the type size. All right. Because of that, this here becomes much closer to this last line, and all of these lines are getting kind of pushed out. So when you have different size text, whether you're trying to put text that is going to be within the copy text, the body text here with little subheaders or pull quotes, and you're kind of using the same text box, you need to manually go in and make adjustments. All right. First off, the 120% rule for the letting is only for body text. When you have small text, 9, 10, 11, 12 point text, that's when you need to worry about this. When it becomes much larger, this should automatically get tightened up, right? It does not need to be 120% of the size. You can't pay attention to your descenders and your ascenders. Like, there is a comfortable reading that this should still work as, but it does not need to be default. All right. When you have this happening, and then you also have other text, the one thing you want to watch out for too is that the next line doesn't attaches itself to the last line only, right? So this is its own separate line here, but if this ends up becoming wider, right, and it's sitting here, it would almost be like this text here is attached to our fighting back and not really sitting on its own. Same with this. The author attaches itself to the atmosphere. So you need to come in here and adjust the letting away, so that way this block of text sits away from here and the author will sit far away. All right. Now, personally, I do not do this. I end up having 3 separate text boxes. I will have the title in one text box, this subtitle in another text box, and then this author in another text box. So this way I can manually move them around and they do not touch each other, or not touch each other, but be right up against one another. All right, that was that. Done. Yeah, that was that. And then we went into the grid systems. All right, so when you want to use baseline alignment, that's not set up. So this here is not set up for baseline alignment. So I'm going to select this. Let's go to, all right, so every time that I want to have a new paragraph, I simply will have another space, right? So this here is baseline alignment. So when I end up having this and this and this, and you can see, well, this is kind of throwing it off. I'm going to get rid of this for a second. So you can see as you come across, all the lines match up, right? All the way across these 2 columns. Now you can have other elements that kind of push it off like before. So when we end up having that text subheader, it kind of threw everything off a bit. But you want to make sure you retain that spacing, all right? So if you end up having sort of that subheader that's going to be a little bit larger, what you need to do is, you can see this, go away, all right. This is going to be 15.6 because it's a little bit larger than my body text, all right? I need everything to be 12. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going in the one that's above it. Actually, I want this to be this. And then I want this to be 12. All right? So now, even though that is a temporary bump, as we come through, we keep our lines perfectly aligned all the way across. Okay? You can draw in a guide for yourself. So you come up in here and you would say, all right, I want my right here. So with this, you're going to show your baseline grid. Click this, and then you would end up just kind of moving this to where that is. So this way, then it kind of gives you a guide to make sure that you're staying all the way through. I personally don't. I do use baseline alignment often, but I never really show this grid, because as long as I know that my tops are aligned perfectly, and I'm making sure that I take care of certain things like this that are going to be disruptive, I know for a fact that it's going to be true all the way through. But it might be useful for you, so definitely use it. If you hit this and nothing shows up, make sure that you play around with your how far you're zoomed in and out, because you can see I just zoomed out once to 50 and it's gone. If I go again, that's too far out. I go to 75, there it is. All right, so it could be that it's just like an awkward viewing, that it's not going to be showing up for you. All right, so I'm going to turn that off. The other thing was setting up columns, setting up rows, and creating a modular grid layout for yourself. To do this, you're going to go up to layout, you're going to go to margins and columns, and then in here you can set up your margins. All right, so make sure previous setup. I'm going to wait, what am I doing? Oh, I'm sorry. Create guides. Go in here. You have your rows, you have your columns, and then more importantly, right over here, you have your options. So you're going to have to fit to margins or fit to page. So if you start setting up your columns, you can see the columns are coming in, but it's set up to our margins that are already set, right? If I want to ignore my margin, let's say that you're still kind of in the process, you're like, you know what, I don't know what my margins are really going to be at the moment, and I kind of want to create something a little bit different. You can have aligned a page and create even more, and that there is going to end up creating your margins for you, because then you're going to end up having, say, something like this, and you're saying, all right, this is kind of what I want to have, because I want to have a little bit of freedom. I want this to go across 3. I want this to go across 3. This is going to pull in my margin here, and my margin is going to be here. All right. So then you're going through, you're like, that's good. I want my rows to come in. Okay. So once you end up having this all set, you hit OK, and you will see that you have these gutters and all of these little modules. Like so, these boxes are where you keep everything inside. All right. So let's say I now want to have just a single column. I want to make certain that I'm staying within my comfortable reading zone. And when you increase the size, you never ever go into your gutter. All right. So you stay within the actual modules. You do not go beyond. You don't sit here. You don't sit there. You don't put it here. All right. You stay inside these guides. When you bring an image in, right, you end up having these sit perfectly here. Or you could have it sitting this way. But you don't have, what's the point of setting up a grid if you're not going to be using it? All right. But you need to make certain that you stay true to what you're setting up. And then if we had 2 images sitting by side, all right. So this is what you would do to set up a modular grid. You can then say you're looking at this, you're like, this is terrible, I don't want this anymore. You're going to come up here, you're going to hit create guides again. If you set up a new one, if I start going ahead and creating, you can see that it's creating it on top of the grid that's already there. You got to select this, remove, so this way as you create a new one, it's going to get rid of the other one that you already had there for you. All right. So that's how you would set up your different grids that you want to use and deploy into your design. All right. Then the last class that we had, I only showed you 3 things. All right. Let me get rid of. Do that. All right. So we have our design all set. We have our typefaces all set. It was setting up your the character styles. All right. Now you have to wait until you have a design before you can set up these styles. All right. So I'm gonna pull this out. I already had these from the last class. Let's delete them. All right. So you have your text, you have everything all set. You're going to select your a little bit of the text that you have, and then when you hit create new, and then it's going to just give you a character style 1, you have to name it. Like even in this project, you're only going to have maybe 5 or 6 styles, but sometimes it can get a little chaotic. All right, so we're going to double click it and change the name. All right, go to basic character, and you can see that it pulled in the name of the family that we're using, the typeface. It pulled in the weight that we're doing. It pulled in the size. It in this case, it pulled in the tracking because we had fixed that, and it's still an orphan sitting there. But see these gray boxes? That means is the default value. Nothing is different about that. All right. If we were to create a new text box, you can see it's Minion Pro, regular, 12 point. All right, so I'm typing, and then I just want to go ahead and create all my styles at the beginning of anything that I'm designing because I really want to get them over with. So I create new, I double click this, I go to basic character, nothing's there. It's all blank because there's nothing unique about it. So you have to wait until you actually start designing your layout and coming up with an idea and saying, all right, this is definitely the typeface I'm using. This is definitely going to be, um, the things that I'm going to have. You can make minor adjustments, of course, after, but you really can't pull the trigger on this until you have an idea of what you want, because then it's useless. Like all of that, it doesn't pull any information in for you. All right. All right. So once you have, so let me create this one. All right. So now I'm working on something, and now I need to have, let's say this one here was still just regular text. Now I have this, and I click, and then it changes that size for me. So then that's how you come through and say, all right, if I have another subheader that needs to be that, I just double click and I can click this. Now it's like, all right, I want to make that change. It's just like what we had done in Illustrator. You come in here and then you can make adjustments. So now I'm going to drop it down to 11. I hit OK, and it makes that change. All right. Now let's say I need to make a change just to one of them. All right. For whatever reason, I need to change the tracking on this. Right. So I hit this plus 10, this, or if I have to make it a slightly 10.9, for some reason it just has to be a little bit different. Maybe it needs to have the kerning needs to be different. So, something about it that was pulled in that forces it to be a little bit different than the rest. You're going to see a little plus symbol show up. That just lets you know that there is something about this text that is different from the other text that you had created. That's the only thing that it's showing. All right. Let me do this. Now, remember, I use this as an, where to go? I don't know what happened to that. I use the body text that had the tracking, right? So when I select the body, I don't want that tracking. So I hit this, and it has a little plus symbol because that was pulled in. That's why that's the issue. All right. All right. So then the next one that we did was creating swatches for color. So the color that you generally start off with, let me hide this and pull this. All right. This is really all the color that you have. Actually, not that. There we go. All right, so these are all the colors you have. In here, you have all of the same window tools that you would have in Illustrator, in Photoshop. You come in here, you can make a selection of what color that you want. Once you have a color that you like, you come down here, hit the plus symbol, and there it is. All right, double click it. Uh-oh. I think it just broke. Oh, here we go. All right, so it's sitting in here. You can change this and change it to a name that makes sense for you, right? So maybe this is going to be my subheader color. Okay, so now, oops. So I'm going to come in here, create that. Now, you can go through, so I have only two of these. You can go through, just select and hit this again. Something else you can do is use the eyedrop, click, and then it keeps it like charged. See how the eyedrop turned to point to the right? I can now click another text and it's going to fill in all of that color. If I have a different, say I want to change this text here to that, it will change it to that. If it's just color you want, right? So if I just wanted to change, the color of this, I can use the eyedrop, and then whatever I touch is going to change to that color, right? But if I select the text, it's not only remembering the color, it's remembering all of the color and the size and everything else that goes with it, the weight and the typeface. All right. But then if I want to make a change to this, I come in here, I end up showing the preview. You can see how now I'm changing it to a different color all the way through. So definitely utilize your swatches, because often when you're designing on screen, the print obviously, like you know, is going to look a little different. And even with only 20 pages, you don't want to sit there and spend all that time. You just want to go in, make that change to your swatches, and then it's good all the way across the document. All right, the last thing we did was exporting, right? So you want to print this. We have 2 pages side by side. We have a cover, and then all the way through. We go to File, we go to Export, and we have 2 options for a PDF. We have Interactive, which is for screen, and then we have Print. We're going to select Print, hit Save, Replace. In here, by default, it's pages. If we keep it as pages, then each one of these pages on our spread is going to be separated out on us. We want to go to Spread. So now these 2 pages side by side are locked together. Go to Marks and Bleeds. We want crop marks, and we want to utilize bleed settings. We hit Export, hit OK. And then you can see here is our file. We have them side by side all the way through, and we have our trim marks and our fold mark right in the middle. All right, so now we can send this to the printer very quickly just to see how the 2-page spreads are being shown together. All right, okay, that was it that we covered. Hope this helps, and I will see you all later today.